It's a crazy world, crazy world. Somebody's gotta have to save you. It's a crazy world. It's a crazy world. Somebody's gotta have to save you.
All right, people of the internet, I'm Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report on October 25th, 2024. And for those of you who are very, very sharp, you may note that this is a pre-tape. We are not live today because I am currently in New York City. I am on the Greg Gutfeld #1 late night show, Gutfeld with an exclamation point, program this evening, and a couple other surprises in store over the next couple of days, and we'll put up video on the channel of all the appearances and all that good stuff. So today we're going to just recap a couple things that we didn't get to earlier in the week, and then we're going to have a RubinReport.locals.com community Q&A, and yeah, we're about 10 days out, and Lordy, it is going to be, if you think it's been a wacky year, wacky 2 years, if you think it's been a weird decade, it's about to get weirder, wackier, and wilder over the next 10 days. So we shall see. So let's just dive right into it. JD Vance, it's an interesting pick, JD, because before he was selected by Donald Trump, I was pushing for Tulsi, and just in this week alone, Tulsi announced that she's not only supporting Donald Trump, that's a couple months ago, but now officially a member of the Republican Party, wide tent, all that stuff. But my feeling was Trump should go to somebody that would widen the base a little bit. I have to say, and this is to Trump's credit, and this is where he usually gets it right. The guy did host a show called The Apprentice, Celebrity Apprentice as well. He knows how to pick these people. And I think JD has just done an absolutely fine job. He really shined in the VP debate, of course. He's shown himself to have a sense of humor, have command of the issues. He's television ready, all that stuff. Anyway, I thought we would just start with this. He went on Theo Von's podcast, and they were just having fun for a moment. And I just thought, fun, talking about cocaine and some other stuff. It's like, this is so much just more real than anything that Tim Walz could do.
You can't even do cocaine in this country anymore, And that seems like a crazy thing to say. And don't say that. Don't say that. But I said it. But yeah. But don't say that anymore. The last one I went to, some dude selling a boat at one of them.
Exactly.
And we're like, you can't, dude. We're trying to get off of drugs, dude. And yeah, and some guys started bidding on the boat. I'm like, and they had made him take it outside. Yeah, because it's outside issues or whatever. Dude, I was in a meeting. Some guy had a fish hook stuck in his freaking cheek, dude.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Dude, yeah.
Man.
He had 2 weeks clean.
Yeah. He'd either had a really bad night or a really good night. Maybe both. Jesus.
Yeah, who knows what happened. God dang, it's just like, all right, dude. Catch and release, brother. Catch and release. He probably tried to come across the border.
We'll do
And I only say that because we've had a couple of Border Patrol agents on here, and so we've learned a good bit about it over the years. Okay, United States, Germany, Canada, Japan, Switzerland.
I can't see that.
Switzerland.
Terrible. Yeah, Switzerland.
Heard of that.
Yeah.
Comparable county average.
You're screwing with me.
Austria. Well, I think they misspelled it, dude. There's not that many zits in it.
No, I worry. Okay, so America has a terrible obesity problem.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I'm not a doctor. I'm not telling, if your doctor tells you to take Ozempic, follow your doctor's advice, not, what you're hearing from me on a podcast.
Thick, I don't mind it a little, Wow.
I'm not a big raisin guy.
Yeah.
You like raisins?
Because I like grapes that have been through something. It's just who I am, But so yeah, I guess I do like it,
I guess I like my grapes, nice and clean and
I like
unaffected.
grapes of wrath, which are basically raisins. Those are basically raisins.
Nothing there really reinvented the wheel, let's say. But the reason I wanted to show it to you was just a compilation of just like silliness and laughing and being real. And you can see JD, even with his white t-shirt and his light blue jeans, he's kind of a dork, but he can joke around and it's humanizing and real. And that's just in such contrast to what we've seen of Tim Walz trying to shoot a gun and all of just everything they've done with Kamala to try to make her look real and everything else. But then on the podcast, and this is really why I wanted to get to it, they did do some substantive stuff as well. And one of the huge things, and it's very dear to JD's heart, he wrote Hillbilly Elegy, is what's going on with the drug cartels and the amount of drugs that are coming through our border.
Fentanyl, it's not, you can't like make fentanyl in a trailer in somebody's basement, right? It's not like meth. It takes a really complicated, pretty sophisticated pharmaceutical process. So we know that a lot of it, maybe even most of it, the Chinese are making, meaning Chinese companies, not like necessarily the Chinese government, but they sure as hell know about it. And then they bring it in primarily through the southern border. And the Mexican drug cartels are like the wholesalers, right? If the Chinese pharma's the manufacturer, the drug cartels are bringing in wholesale style. Why are we making it easier for this like massive criminal organizations to get richer and richer and richer? Like we should be trying to make them poor. And I mean, help people who actually need it.
Well, it's obviously one of the biggest enemies. That's right. It's like if there were an enemy that were killing, if there were somebody shooting into your country every day and killing people, at a certain point you go over there, or you send your military there, or do something to say, hey,
that's right.
You're not going to be. We're not going to let you do this anymore.
Yeah, I think not that we have to send people to Mexico, but I think that we actually have to have a military response at the southern border.
100%.
Because these are such vicious people. And I think local law enforcement, they're telling us they're overwhelmed by some of these guys. And we've got to be willing to send our best people, our best fighters to get control of the southern border. I think that's the most important issue confronting the country.
But now you can see why I wanted to show you that. It contrasts just like the silly stuff and then a command of the issue. You know, the fentanyl issue, 74,000 Americans died of fentanyl in 2023. It will probably be more than that in 2024. And they make a good point there. It's like, if we had another nation that was killing 74,000 of our people with bombs or bullets or something else, bows and arrows, we might do something about it. But in effect, in that sense, if you think about it in a slightly different prism, China has declared war on us. We know what they're doing. JD just laid it out there, where they develop these drugs, fentanyl mostly, but now there's some other things too. They develop them and in essence cook them over there. And then the Mexican drug cartels, they're just the dealers, right? They're the guys that are doing it wholesale, getting it to our dealers here in the country, in America, many of whom also are illegal. Like there is a sophisticated operation that is literally killing Americans, and he's not calling on our troops. He goes out of his way to say we shouldn't be sending troops into Mexico, but how about we just close the damn wall, close the damn border? And it's like when Donald Trump said all that, 2015, when he was running the first time, he was Hitler and blah, blah, blah. And now it's basically the policy that Kamala is pushing for her administration, not what they've done for these last 3.5 years. And they kept saying we needed a bipartisan border deal and everything else. But anyway, I was showing you that really to show that this guy he can do the silly, nonsensical stuff and the dorky laughing and whatever. And then there's serious, substantive stuff. I want to show you one other clip of this, because here they got into it about Big Pharma. And one of the things that I think has been so great over the last few months is the level of competency you're going to see in a Trump administration, from JD to some of the people he's going to put in there like RFK, and maybe how they could deal with our problem related to big pharmaceutical companies.
That's the thing like the Sackler family clearly got rich off of an extraordinary amount of human misery and death.
Yeah.
And there was never a criminal, at least as I understand it, never a criminal investigation into what was known.
Yeah, I think they had breached a plea deal of some sort.
Okay.
As the nation continues to grapple with the Sackler family had agreed to pay $6 billion to families and states as part of an agreement to wind down Purdue Pharma, the maker of OxyContin. In exchange, the Sackler family would be immunized from future civil liability claims. Unreal.
Bobby Kennedy makes this point all the time, right? Like, good. Some pharmaceuticals are good for us, but some actually it's not totally clear whether we're taking them just because it makes people money. And this is like, let me give you a concrete example, right? So, there's obviously this big like debate about transgender issues, and you don't have to wade into that. But what really worries me is when you've got pharmaceutical companies that are making billions of dollars on hormonal therapies for kids, and are we really are we really being smart about whether this is good for the kids, about whether it causes long-term consequences? And why is nobody saying, well, wait a second, the people who are lobbying us to give these drugs to kids are also getting rich off of it?
Right.
I mean, right there. Let's move away from the financial part of it for a second. Just dealing with, like, you could see, you think he hates trans kids, if that exists? Do you think he's really has no empathy for someone who might be gender confused or biologically confused or going through puberty or any of those things? Like, he's trying to show you, like, oh, there's some stuff to talk about. But then beyond the stuff to talk about at the human level about gender confusion and everything else, there are companies that are making insane amounts of money drugging our children and drugging the adults with a whole different series of things, like Oxy and the rest of it and Ozempic and blah, blah, blah. And then there's the human part of it. So we want to be sympathetic to the human part while also dealing with the conflicting issues around these companies that come in and get us hooked on all of these things. Anyway, I just thought that was a nice just moment of like the silly and the serious at once. And that is, again, in stark contrast to what we're seeing on the other side. I want to jump over to Mark Cuban for a minute. We've talked a lot about Cuban. He seems to be in the zeitgeist lately because he's gone all in on DIE. They call it DEI, but it's DIE in my book. He has become radically anti-Trump, even though he used to do some business and some stuff with the administration. He loves Kamala Harris, doesn't really know why. And it's a little bizarre because he's a capitalist billionaire who's done quite well in America, but doesn't seem to understand what actually made him do so well. Anyway, he went on CNBC to say he was America first, then kind of not America first, then he likes Trump, doesn't like Trump, might help Trump. It's all very confusing.
We let you go on for a half hour. You're not. Maybe you will change someone's mind. I don't know. I've heard it all.
Joe,
before.
I've sat there in meetings, and I know I have. I sat in a meeting in Phoenix. And I said, okay, I don't want to talk. I tell the campaign, I don't want to talk to people who already are voting for Kamala. I want to talk to people who are thinking they're voting for Trump or undecided.
Well, maybe you're changing some minds today. I don't know. You look at Twitter. But the question I'll be respectful and kind to you, but people think.
Don't be, Joe. I don't need you to be respectful and kind to me. Be rude. I don't care. I'll take any question you throw at me. I don't care if people are yelling at me, screaming at me, calling me names. Elon calls me a racist, a turd.
I think you must like it.
It's not that I like it. I know it's at stake.
Well, you must eat it up. If Trump's got a nose that's as long as a road, your skin, from what I see people say to you on Twitter, must be as thick as, from Boston to L.A., Mark. And that's fine. Yeah, but you obviously enjoy what you're doing, and God bless you. You got $1 billion. You're still going to have a G650 after this election. So what the hell?
Yeah, it's what's best for the country. That's what I care about. And look, let me just add, if Trump wins, last time when he won, he asked me to help on healthcare, on PPE. I sat with Peter Navarro and helped him come up with a mask company and help them grow. And that was all domestic production. I'll do the same thing. I'm America first. First, that's the wrong way to put it. I am what's best for this country over party, country over all. I just think Kamala Harris, without any question in my mind, is the better candidate and the better president for this country.
First off, I always think it's hilarious when people give you so much credit for putting up with hate online. Have you guys ever read some of my comments? People say some pretty bad things about me. You don't have to look at your phone all day, and you can block people and mute them and just not pay attention to it. There are people out there who are doing far more dangerous things than Mark Cuban, and I assure you of that. That's number one. Number two, I like how he has to walk back from saying America first, even though there's nothing wrong with being America first, obviously. And then he kind of hedges his bets on that. However, he did say something interesting there, which was that he would work in an administration if Trump called on him. Now, Trump, if we know one thing about Trump, it's like he's good at putting the feuds aside when he feels like he can work with somebody, right? He makes fun of people, calls them all sorts of crazy names, and then brings them into the administration. He did that the first time around. He's done this in his entire career. So to Cuban's credit there, I do believe that it's possible Trump in an administration, Cuban's doing a lot with pharmaceuticals right now and low-cost drugs, prescription drugs. It's like maybe Cuban could help on that. I think Trump would do it, and I actually do believe that Cuban might be able to do it. That is more evidence that you should actually vote for Donald Trump, Mark Cuban, because try to picture it the other way now. Kamala's president. Is she going to call Elon Musk to help with government efficiency? No, they will be absolutely at odds. And you damn well know that all of the government agencies and all of these court cases that they're trying to do against Elon and his companies, all of these things will be ramped up. That is just, they will continue to go after Twitter to silence dissent. They will continue to go after his businesses. Clay Travis sat right here just a couple weeks ago and said that they will try to jail Elon. I don't know if that's off the table. And that's the fundamental difference. So Cuban, it's good to see you would work with the opposition, but would your side, at the same time you're telling me how great Kamala is, which I'm never sure exactly why she's great, but she's the choice you like, would she ever do the very thing that you think is great, which is putting country before self? Think about that, Mark Cuban. Let's talk about preserved gold and then a couple other crazy stories of the week. One from California, which is a communist shithole. Hold on. We're living in unpredictable times with digital currencies on the rise, a whopping $35 trillion in national debt, and inflation still at a 40-year high. For these reasons and more, the Big Short traders, known for their successful bet against the housing market back in 2008, are warning that Americans don't have enough gold in their portfolios. Their advice comes amid massive central bank gold buying taking place globally and spiraling $35 trillion national debt lingering across the U.S. That's why you should strongly consider physical gold and silver to help protect your retirement accounts like IRAs and 401ks. Preserved Gold is giving away a no-cost, no-obligation free wealth protection guide that contains 25-plus pages of detailed information and insights. Learn how you can put physical gold and silver into an IRA or 401k and even purchase precious metals for delivery directly to your home. All you need to do is text the word DAVE to 50505. Preserved Gold has hundreds of 5-star reviews and millions of dollars in trusted transactions with satisfied clients. As an exclusive offer to my viewers, in addition to their free guide, you can also get up to $15,000 in free gold and silver with a qualified purchase. Just text DAVE to 50505 to receive this exclusive offer. All right, so this story is absolutely wild. This was going viral. I wanted to get to it earlier in the week, but this is video of a mother exposing what was happening in a California classroom. A teacher had students do a mock vote for Trump or Harris. We could debate whether they should be doing that and how politicized classrooms should be and everything else. I can tell you that when I was in, I believe it was 7th grade, 1988, we had a mock election for Dukakis and George W. Bush, and I was on the Dukakis side. I was a good Democrat growing up in New York, so we did do those things. I had a great social studies teacher. His name was Mr. Karatsaris, great guy. I think he just passed away, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, they had a mock vote for Trump or Harris, and well, you might think that's okay. The teacher gave the pizza to the kids who voted for Harris.
Do you guys think this is normal for them to bring politics into school? And if they vote for, I live in California, by the way, but if you vote for Kamala Harris, then you're going to get a pizza party. But if you vote for Donald J. Trump, apparently you are
majority for Harris.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, and to follow that same spirit, because the Democrats are more for feeding the hungry, free medical care, feed more services, just pay higher taxes, that I'll be willing to buy pizza for the class.
Other classes, because they did not vote for Harris, they're not going to get pizza?
Yeah. Well, they can. They just do what the conservatives do, which pay for yourself.
You see how evil this is and why it is so important to do homeschooling. At the very least, know more about what your kids are learning in school. I mean, the gender stuff aside and everything else, the way they can infect these young people's minds. So what the teacher said there was, if you vote for Kamala, in essence, I'm trying to teach them a lesson, and Democrats give you shit, right? Democrats like high taxes so that you get a lot of stuff. Now, interestingly, the teacher, who's obviously not that bright in the first place, I'm fairly certain the teacher didn't force the children to give up their money, which is what taxes are. Right? The teacher didn't steal the money from the children. I'm taking 5% of all of your allowances this week, whether you like it or not, and giving you pizza. The teacher actually did the conservative thing. The teacher took their own money and then used it for a cause that they believe in. Now, they were wrong about the logic behind all of that, but this is the type of stuff you have to watch out for. Good for that parent to expose it. And I wish I could say that sort of stuff is surprising, but if you think that's weird, just try to imagine any of the rest of the stuff. And just the very idea that what they teach you is high taxes are good. The very idea what they teach you, government giving you all of these things are good. Yes, if you would like to live as a dhimmi, as a slave, that is the way to do it. Just a bit more on the upcoming election, because they've already been seeding the ground here with the idea that we will not know the results that night. And to me, this would be, things have been so wacky for so long. We need a resolution that night. We really do. That's how it should work in any Western democracy if we had tight and secure elections, which we should have. Unfortunately, some of the states just refuse to do that. But here is Michigan's Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, and she's already saying that they probably will not have results on Election Day. And of course, Michigan is a huge swing state.
The conversation has been, look, don't expect to know who won the election on Election Day, but you have said that your state will have everything certified, ready to go the day after November 6th. Do you still stand by that?
We are on track based on our hardworking election officials and machines and voters to make sure that unofficial results in our state will be ready by the close of day on Wednesday. It's the same time they were available after the 2020 election, so we predict the same could unfold again. But we'll be there to make sure accuracy and security is prioritized over efficiency. And from the minute the polls close till we have those unofficial results, we'll make sure the public knows exactly where we are in the process and why.
Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, good to have you with us this morning. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Did you catch what she said there? That's Wednesday. Election Day's Tuesday. So they're not planning on having it. They will have the unofficial results on Wednesday. I would like them on Tuesday. I would say by the latest midnight. That would not be great. You should be able to do it before then. But also the woman, she looks like she's like a deer staring into the headlights. Like they just want everybody to feel a little unsure about everything. And of course, we only have to look back to how they used to view elections. What was the sane liberal response to elections? Well, check this out. This is video in 2016 from the New York Times on how insane it was not to have results on Election Day back in 2000.
The one thing no one expected in a presidential campaign is that we wouldn't know who won on Election Day.
Count our votes! Count our votes!
Yes, that was Jeffrey Tubin, who accidentally exposed himself on a Zoom call and then was fired by CNN and also rehired by CNN, as they always do. But you get this? So 8 years ago, in essence, CNN is running stories and New York Times are running stories on how crazy it is not to have results. And then just 8 years later, it's like it's baked in now that, oh, well, we'll have to wait for mail-in ballots, or you never know, a pipe might burst in Philadelphia, or, well, there's just weird stuff and you don't know about these long lines and everything else. Oh, man, I just hope, whatever the results are, I hope we know it and are confident of it and it's clean and clear on election night, because there's just enough craziness in the system. We just don't need more of it for that to then roll into Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and into next year and everything else. Guys, let's talk about RAMP real quick, and then we'll have a RubinReport.locals.com community Q&A. Running a business is tough, and how you manage your finances, from expenses to vendor payments to accounting, can make or break your success. That's why you need a system that works as hard as you do, and Ramp could be a game changer. Ramp is a corporate and spend card management software that helps you save time and money. It gives finance terms unmatched control and insight into company spending. You can issue cards to every employee with set limits, automate expense reporting, and never waste time chasing receipts again. Ramp software collects receipts and categorizes expenses in real time so you can close your books up to 8 times faster. Best of all, Ramp is easy to use. You can issue virtual and physical cards and start making payments in less than 15 minutes, whether you have 5 employees or 5,000. And right now you can get $250 when you join Ramp. Just head on over to ramp.com/Rubin. That's ramp.com/Rubin. Cards issued by Sutton Bank, member FDIC. Terms and conditions apply. Here we go. Talway says, what are your plans for after the election once we finally have a winner? Whether that might be. Will you be taking a break, traveling, writing, or do you think that the state of the country means that things aren't likely to settle down much even once the tally is in? Well, look, things will not be set. My previous segment aside for just a second. Let's say we have a result that night, which again, I really, really hope we have. And it's clean. Like there's enough people that feel like it's clean and everything else, which that may be an impossibility at this point. Trust me, if Donald Trump wins, especially if he wins by only a sliver of a margin, It is going to be very in. It is going to be the current thing, as they call it, to suddenly challenge election results, right? After last time, if you talked about that on YouTube, you were demonetized or deleted, or you couldn't talk about it on old Twitter and everything else. This time, if Donald Trump wins, even if Donald Trump wins by like a decent amount, it will be very okay to challenge election results. It will be very okay to challenge the system and everything else. But let's go on the assumption that we have a result that night. Like, pray for that, because again, so much is shaking in the system. We just don't need more craziness. Well, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. We're going to take a couple days off around Thanksgiving and then Christmas week. But show continues one way or another, whether we are on the slow descent to Marxism, I would prefer not, or whether we are on the restoration of America, which is where I pray that we're going, and I think is the perhaps last chance for the grand project of America. This is really where we're at this time. You know, I mentioned to Phoenix this morning, we'll do a show probably next week. We'll dedicate at least a portion of a show to what happens actually if Trump loses. Like, if Trump loses, well, then Trump is gone, right? He's too old to do this again. He has loomed so large, not just in our politics, but in our culture, in all of our minds. It's like, it's hard to even envision a world post-Trump. Like, what happens to the Republican Party? Do the Democrats rip the masks off fully and then come at us with everything they've got if they haven't done that already? Like, there's so many things to think about. And we're so potentially close to everything being so radically different. That's basically 10 days from now. But we will continue to do a show either way, and I will continue to tell the truth to the best of my ability. Florida Man Chuck says, given the severe shift in the Republican and Democrat Party dynamics, meaning that most centrists, libertarians, constitutionalists, and now classical Democrats are now strongly on the side of the Republican Party, do you think it will be the end of what we knew as the two-party system, or do you think after Trump's term that they will once again be divided on certain policies and revert to how things were? Well, this is on the, look, if Trump wins, and we can get on that path to a good America again, and we have sane foreign policy, and we have sane economic policy, and we have a sane border, and just there's some level of sanity. Now, I know the Dems will freak out. They will unleash violence again. They will do their new version of a BLM Hamas thing, like whatever it is. The media will go crazy. It's not as if MSNBC is just going to close up shop. It will all of that will get crazy. But I think it would signal to the people, especially if Trump wins big, it would signal to the average person, America's back in some sense, right? And I think a lot of people, even if they can't quite see that yet, I think they would start to understand it, because things would get better pretty quickly. I think it would be similar to what Milei has done in Argentina, where their economy, which was a socialist nightmare, is now absolutely booming. I think it would be similar to what's happened in El Salvador under Bukele, where they cleaned up all the crime really quick. I think some things could happen really quickly. I think there would be momentum around this new group of people with RFK and Elon and everything else. So I think all of the people, the types of people you just mentioned, the constitutionalists, the classical liberals, everybody could kind of get together, put together a nice little project, and there might be something to run with. It doesn't stop the other side from doing something crazy. But to directly answer your question in terms of the two-party system, I think then, because Trump would obviously only be a one-term president, I think if Trump could clean it up, that would then be the thing we need to get back to something more normal. The Democrats, I have no doubt, will not do the introspection. They will continue to go off the deep end, and that will be what the Democrat Party is. But the Republican Party might then hand the reins to a JD and just look how well he can explain what he believes in all those things. But it doesn't even have to be him. You'd have this wide swath of people, a deep bench of people that wouldn't necessarily need the shenanigans that Trump needed. You know, all the aversion that people had about, well, he says this and he jokes about that and grab him by the pussy and blah, blah. You might be able to get past that, have something that is sort of a more quote unquote normal Republican Party and just sort of the wacky Democrat Party. I don't see how we get out of like the two-party thing anytime soon. I think the structure just exists in that sense, and that probably is not going anywhere. Metamare says, so what do you say to Dems that freak out about Project 2025 when you tell them that you're voting Republican? First off, Donald Trump has nothing to do with Project 2025. The Heritage Foundation, which is a conservative nonprofit, put out Project 2025. It's a paper with their ideas on what the future of the country could look like. There are hundreds probably thousands of nonprofit think tanks that largely exist in DC, and they don't do much. They just hire these stodgy people to sit in their rooms, and I've been to a lot of these rooms in DC, and they wear bow ties, and everyone looks a little pudgy, and they talk about their things, and nobody really accomplishes much of anything. They sit in a tank and think. That's basically what they do. There might be some good ideas in 2025, in Project 2025. There might be some bad ideas. It just is largely irrelevant. But it has nothing to do with Donald Trump. Now, the problem, this is your point, is that people believe it does. So during the debate, when Donald Trump is like, I have nothing to do with Project 2025, a minute later, Kamala Harris is like, Donald Trump's Project 2025. Or you see the ads, Donald Trump's Project 2025. And then JD's like, well, we have nothing to do with 25. So almost everything just boils down to the war on reality, right? And the truth war that we're all sort of in, the social media war that we're in and everything else. To me, the best way to get somebody that is on the fence right now is just saying to him, look, take a breath for a second. Were things pretty good under Donald Trump pre-COVID? The Middle East, Russia, Ukraine, the border, your bank account, like calmly ask them about those things. Do you really know somebody that absolutely cannot have an abortion right now and is unable to go from state to cross state lines if they needed to do it? Like, you can calmly, to the best of your ability, talk about these issues. I know it's getting harder and harder, but that's the best way to get people across. But just convincing them that Trump has nothing to do with 2025 or any of these things, very fine people, like to just do these things again. I know it can be, it's brutal. It's brutal to have to just repeat yourself over and over. Gal Vatan says, Kamala Harris is fond of saying, I will follow the law in response to questions about policy. However, she refused to follow the law as Attorney General of California when she willfully chose not to defend Prop 8. Whether you agree with the measure or not, California citizens voted for the measure, and Harris refused to defend the law in front of the California Supreme Court. What are your thoughts on this? So there's some confusion here about Prop 8. So you may remember Prop 8 was the proposition in California in November of 2008 about same-sex marriage. If you voted yes on Prop 8, that meant you wanted to ban same-sex marriage. It was very bizarrely worded because most people think if you vote yes on something, that means you're going to be for the thing, in this case, same-sex marriage. So it was very, very confusing. But the result of the proposition was that most Californians voted against Prop 8. So they were they voted for Prop 8. So they were, even I confused it right there. They voted for Prop 8. So they were banning same-sex marriage. Now, to your point, put aside what anyone might think about same-sex marriage. My husband's very for it, by the way. But many, you can have your own feelings on that. She is the Attorney General of the state. She refused to defend the decision in court. Now, ultimately, it got to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court talked about individual rights, and they talked about equal protection under the law, and a series of other things that granted gay couples the same exact rights as straight couples, which I think is completely in line with American values and the Constitution, by the way. But your question is about her. And I would say, no, she did not do her job. It is your job as Attorney General to defend the laws of the state, to apply the laws of the state evenly. And in that case, she did not, based on something that was personal to her. Now, I may agree, obviously, that gay marriage is legit, obviously, but that's not what the question was. And I think this just shows that the Democrats, as a general rule, they only believe in laws when they like the laws. And if they don't like the laws, they don't believe in the laws. And I think California is just that's sort of ground zero for that concept. Karina says, they say vote early, but doesn't that give whoever is in charge of counting votes time to close the gap if the person they want falls behind? And yes, I know that implies cheating, but I think it is naive to think that there is no cheating. Well, first off, as most people say at this point, there is some level of cheating. There is some level of these people shouldn't be on the rolls. There is some level of, oh my God, somebody's dead grandma was on there and somebody voted for them. There is some level of, oh, I literally know my neighbor's name and address and I vote in California where I don't have to show an ID. I will vote as him. So of course, there's some level of, in any system, there is no perfect system. So in any level, in any system, there's going to be some level of cheating. I think you make a perfectly legitimate point. The Democrats are so for early voting, so for mail-in ballots. It's like, well, doesn't that in and of itself lend itself to a certain amount of cheating? Because now some election official knows the results. Somebody's been counting things and has numbers in advance. And then a pipe bursts in Pennsylvania, and we have to stop in the middle of the election night when everything seems like it's looking for Trump. I don't know any more than any of you do as to the specifics of whatever happened that night or anything else. But again, I think it goes to why I showed you the video of the Michigan Attorney General before. The more they put just the questions into the system, put all these odd things. Everyone can vote early and you don't need an ID, and we won't have results on election night, until you'd have to almost be an idiot to believe any of it works. And then once you don't believe in it, to roughly quote Padme Amidala from the prequels, if you don't believe in it, it doesn't, that's what, then you're pretty much screwed. I think that's what she said. It was something like that. Bradford says, with the ubiquitous election corruption, there's a theme today, with the lawfare against Trump, and moreover, with the basic Democrat voter being insane, what are the odds that he actually will be sworn in on January 20th? Is there betting in Vegas on this question? That's a good question. What is Vegas saying right now about the odds? Can I get the Vegas odds on the presidential race? We'll get that in just a second. Look, if the man wins, it is not like him to stay on lockdown, so he'll still be out there and everything else. And yes, they will be apoplectic and they will start rioting in the cities again, as I said before. All of that stuff will happen. However, I do believe our system works. It's why Donald Trump, when he was beat last time, whether you like the results or you think something shady happened or anything else, he did not remain in office, and we did have a peaceful transfer of power, however hazy that was for just a little bit, okay? So I do believe that the system still has some value. The system still has some mechanisms in it, and that there's enough of us that believe in it, to the point of the earlier question, that Donald Trump, if he wins the election, will take office on January 20th. Do I have the Vegas odds? Do we have any Vegas odds yet? We're working on the Vegas odds. We're working on Vegas odds. I'll get back to that in a second. Crafty Cat says, would you do the show as Davina for Halloween? I think we can all use some more laughter and less scary leading up to the election. I think we might have a picture. Do we have a picture? Or, yeah, we have a picture. Well, there she is. God bless her. That beautiful woman who I think once guest hosted The View, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if that makes your Halloween less scary to see me in lipstick and in a blouse that we got at Target that morning, and that wig. I'm not sure where we got that. But maybe she could make a return. She could make, I feel like Connor you want to see her, don't you? All right, that's it. She's making a return. I don't know how. I don't know when. Maybe it'll be Halloween, but Davina will be back, baby. The current odds, according to Las Vegas, right now, Donald Trump right now is a 4-7 favorite to win the presidency. Kamala Harris is 11-8. And so in essence, what that means is that if you were to bet $100 on Donald Trump today, with Vegas Insider, you would win $57.14 because he's the favorite to win. So you'd have to put in more to win less. If you bet 100 on Kamala today, she's the underdog, so you would win $138. So in essence, Trump is in the lead. That's what Vegas is saying, and we shall see. Let's talk about some coffee, and then we got more on the other side. Let's be real. Most K-Cup pods are filled with low-quality beans that are loaded with mold, pesticides, and who knows what else. Studies have shown that mold and pesticide residue are big issues in mass-produced coffee, and trust me, you can taste the difference. Stale, toxic coffee isn't the way to start your day. That's why Rumble's 1775 coffee is a game changer. Their new K-Cup pods are packed with single-origin, high-altitude beans, hand-picked for maximum flavor with no shortcuts. Whether you prefer medium roast, dark roast, or their mushroom blend with lion's mane, reishi, and cordyceps for a brain boost, these pods fuel your mornings without the junk you get from big brands. Now you don't have to sacrifice quality for the convenience with K-Cups. Head on over to 1775coffee.com/Rubin and use code Rubin to save 15% off your 24-pack today and power up your mornings with the best. I'll Fight You Naked says none of this makes sense. They aren't even giving Kamala the most basic canned responses to the obvious criticism and questions. I can't tell if it's because they want to lose cleanly and avoid violence, or if they want to make the cheating so obvious that everyone who would ever dare to speak up can be identified and targeted. Dave, do you have a different take? It really is interesting. You're making a good point here. the videos that we have shown you of her over the last couple weeks, these answers, whether it's the Brett Baer interview, whether it's that 60 Minutes interview, and those were both legit interviews with good questions, proper pushback. They were done respectfully and everything else. And she clearly was not prepared. The Venn diagrams, the talking in circles, you get it. She really needed to be prepared for those. You need to be able to answer the question, how would you do things differently than Biden? You need to be able to answer the question, when did you know that something wrong was happening with Joe Biden? You need to be answer the question related to the border or anything else, or the Israel stuff was horrible. Like, there's so much that should just be the basic stuff that she can handle. Now, she can't do it the way Trump would do it, which is basically go into an interview, you kind of roughly know your stuff, and you just go and you just say what you think, right? That's what Donald Trump does. And you might say it's a little loose sometimes or whatever else, but that's how he does it. And by the way, everyone has their own mechanisms when it comes to these things. You know, when I do public speaking, if I'm given an hour talk, usually a few minutes before, I just kind of line up a few things in my head. I'm like, all right, this is where I want to start. This is where I kind of want to be in the middle. And this is where I want to be at the end. And then I can get there in that talk. There are other people that give a talk and they need to go through, basically have a script in their mind, and they're just in the script. I'm not saying one is better or one is worse. And you might feel that way about Donald Trump. But as for Kamala, the fact that either she's unable to stick to the script or they're not giving her a script. I don't know what that means, but that's why I liked what my friend David Sachs was saying about her, that she's in this doom loop. When they hid her, it was not going well because people were like, wait a minute, they installed her and now they're hiding her. Now they show her more and it's not going well. All of that being said, I think the last thing that we can do is be overconfident here, because anything can happen, and it's America. And the night of the Trump original win, from 8 years ago, when it was a shock to everybody, I was in that Daily Wire studio with Ben Shapiro and Knowles and Andrew Klavan. And Klavan and most of these guys were not for Trump at that point. They were not for Hillary, but they were not really for Trump. But Klavan was like, you know what? This is America. And what a beautiful thing has just happened, because the thing that we all thought couldn't happen just happened. And that doesn't happen in most countries. Now, I don't want her to be rolling in as the underdog and then it happened. But I just think overconfidence would be the worst possible thing that we could do right now. Jim says, Dave, any suggestion on how we can rescue our LGB brothers and sisters from the dark side of the force and make them see common sense and reason? Yes, notice I left out the T there. Never understood why orientation is lumped in with gender identity. Yeah, look, first off, the T has nothing to do with the LGBs, right? The T's generally are radically against, particularly the L's and the G's. Nobody really cares about the B's that much. But, look, if you have a young girl who's a tomboy, that's what we used to call them, maybe they're going to grow up and be like a butch lesbian, and nobody really cares about that anymore. Oh, you're a lesbian. Congratulations. You get a U-Haul, you go to Home Depot, you play rugby, zippity dippity. If you're an effeminate boy, you might grow up to be a gay man, but you actually might grow up to be a straight man. There are effeminate men that are straight, and there are straight acting dudes that are gay, and there's every version of that thing. So the T's came in, and they're radically against those because they want to chop the genitals off the L's and the G's. If that was happening in a Middle East country, we would think it was pretty bananas. But here, because it comes from our progressive overlords, somehow it's not bananas, even though they want to chop off the banana. So what do we do about what do we do with the L's and the B's and the G's in terms of getting them to vote for Trump? Donald Trump is the first time president ever who came in for gay marriage, number one. There's no such thing as don't say gay in Florida, number two. That he does not care. He does not care. He's not a religious zealot. We have moved past most of these issues. I would think that if you're a gay person, what you should care about more is a border that makes sense, because, when they let in a lot of people from other places, particularly the Middle East, they may not be thrilled with your lifestyle. So care about the border. I also tend to think that gays and lesbians and bisexuals, much like straight people, should care about the economy, things that the government should have a little something to do with. And then really more than anything else, get the government off your back. You want to live an alternative lifestyle? Okay, so be it. That's just fine. Well, the only way it kind of works is without government involvement. So you want the government away. And if the gays could understand that and be edgy again instead of being like hysterical, You know, the gays of the 70s and 80s, they were edgy. There was music, there was art, there was culture. And now it's just like endless hysteria. I'm for the Dems. It's like there's nothing fun or edgy or cool about that. James says there's an op-ed in the Washington Post today and the author's hometown in Aurora, Colorado. The gist of the article is that the Venezuelan gang problem is about 10 people and most are in police custody. The article basically downplays the problem. This is the selectively used tiny number argument. Many other examples could be cited of generalizations based on a tiny number of bad people, almost always to attack people on the right. What are your thoughts? Well, we see this tactic used constantly. This tactic is always used where they tell you something's not happening, then you see it a little bit and they're like, it is happening, but it's not as bad as you think. And then a year later, they're like, oh my God, it's happening and you guys didn't do anything about it. So that does not surprise me at all. I would say 10 Venezuelan gang members illegally in the United States doing bad things is 10 too many. That's not a racist position or a radical position or anything else. I'm sure it is far more than 10. It's also that it's not just Venezuelan gang members. We know that ISIS, literal ISIS and Al-Qaeda members have now been arrested. We have just no idea. And I think especially in the last year plus to the backdrop of October 7th, everyone in a sane society should be like, you know, we should know who's here. We should have a border, and then we can discuss legal immigration. And that's not a radical position. So it does not surprise me. You know, Colorado, which of course is a swing state as well, and for whatever reason seems to lean a little blue these days, even though there's so much. Colorado, it's like, you guys, you have mountains, you have freedom, you have space. You should be red and free. We'll see. Mitchell says, what is your favorite feature of today's smartphone? What is your least favorite feature of today's smartphone? I guess that's two questions. My favorite feature, you know, I have a very horrible sense of direction. If I walk out of a restaurant and I've already parked my car somewhere, I will almost always walk out the wrong way. I go to a mall and I am completely, they're like, Nordstrom is over there and Bloomingdale's over there. Like, I am just, that part of my brain, just something ain't right. Something is not connected there. So maps may sound cliche or boring, but maps to me, that I'm walking around with a map that's going to basically get me to where I want to go. I don't know what I like, moving to a new state and having to drive around and without, you know, maps on my phone or on in the car or whatever, I would be totally screwed. What's the worst thing? I mean, the worst thing is the endless scrolling, whatever app you want to choose to say that about. But, you know, there was a time where you used to meet a friend at a bar or a restaurant. And this is before your day. But you used to go, you'd say, I'll meet you at 7:00 at the bar. And you'd get there at 6:55 and you'd maybe stand outside or sit down at the bar waiting for your friend. And you would just sit there. And you used to watch people. We called it people watching. It was rather amazing. And you just see different people doing different things. And living in New York City particularly, it was an amazing thing because you'd see all sorts of crazy people and all sorts of wacky things. And I think we've removed ourselves from that. We have so little time for just like the brain to not be on stuff. You know, you go on vacation in the middle of nowhere, people watching the most gorgeous sunset they're ever going to see, and they're watching it through their phone. So I think it's the endless obsession with the device and as I mean, I talk about this all the time. It's why I do the Off the Grid August. We have to really try to understand our relationship with that device before it basically just sucks our brains and our spirits and souls and puts it in there and Bitcoins it and sells it to China, something like that. Loin says, advancing America is important to capitalism. We're to lead the world. Which ideas of advancement are there to focus on and are leading to defeat China? Well, it is that. You sort of answered your own question, I would say. It's capitalism, it's freedom, it's free markets. It's that you can always build something better here. And when you have freedom, then whatever it is that you're frustrated with, you could be playing baseball and be like, you know, this glove that I've been using for a while, it's just not great. The pattern's not great inside. Boy, I could make a new baseball glove. Or you could be looking at your phone and be like, you know, the glare on this thing is kind of weird. Oh, maybe I could develop some kind of filter to fix that. Or you could be tasting a coffee and be like, oh man, I could make better coffee than this. Or I want to do literally anything. Capitalism, freedom, the idea that the government should basically be out of your way, that you should keep more of what's yours. You should compete with people, and through competition, you can drive down prices and drive up innovation. It's so fundamental. It's so connected to the human spirit. It's why the United States, still with all her warts and flaws, is still the greatest country on earth. And it's why we must not elect a Marxist in 10 days from now. Spread Joy, not stupidity, says, do you think civil war is inevitable? Funny way to end the show on a Friday. Do I think civil war is inevitable? I don't think it is inevitable. I think that if Kamala, the thing that Kamala represents, is to win this election, I think it's not that we will have civil war in the way that we all think of it or the movies would portray it, which is that we'd be killing each other on the streets or that the states would declare war against one another or something like that. But I think largely the red states, and I would be for this, would continue to figure out ways to go at it on their own. Now, they could not do it at all because the federal government still controls the dollar and they could still crash the dollar and everything else. And states would have to think about borders a little bit differently and all of those things. But I think the red states would be wise to do everything they could to strengthen their own systems and institutions. We've gone a long, long way to doing that in Florida. Texas is doing their own version of that. I think there are some other places as well. And maybe those states could create some sort of unified front. You might argue, okay, you play that forward for 10 years and now there really is a civil war. I wouldn't want it. I wouldn't want to add energy to it. But I think doing what would be in line with our founding fathers, which would be as if there was an authoritarian government that was usurping power and ignoring the Constitution, that the states would do what is right by their people. I would be for that. So hopefully Trump wins and we never have to discuss it again. Although I suppose in that case, some of the blue states might want to do it. In which case, Callie, you want to go? All right. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. That's what I would say. Guys, we've released some new merch at daverubin.store if you want to check that out. And it's Friday, so no post-game show since I'm in New York. I almost said secretly in New York, but I'm there. What can I tell you? And we will be back on Monday. Ciao.
Maybe you can show me how to love. Maybe I'm going through withdrawals. You don't even have to do too much. You can turn me on with just a touch. Baby, I'm going on since city's cold and empty. No one's around to judge me. I can't see clearly when you're gone. I said, oh, I'm blinded by the